Here you go. Good evening, and welcome to our third one for today. We've got another, I think we've got around about 6 or 7 tomorrow. Don't forget, 8 o'clock, we've got Steve and Lisa. In the meantime, we've got Ava. Hello, Ava. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you doing, Steve?
I'm fine, thank you. You're nice and smiley there.
I'm a smiley person.
Good, good. Tell us about yourself.
My most important characteristic, I'm a mother of four most incredible young ladies, all of whom hold my heart. No, they don't. They hold my heart in their hands. That's what they do. And I adore them completely. I'm incredibly proud and privileged to be their mother. And I've worked as an NHS manager for a lot of my life, and I'm incredibly privileged to do so. And I've loved everything about that. I'm also a speaker, author of a book called Choose to Be Excellent, Even When Everything Else Sucks, in which I
Mhm.
talk about some things that indeed have sucked. And I've managed to pull my way out of feeling like there was no tomorrow through some methodologies I talk about in this book. And so I'm a coach, a speaker. I speak about surviving narcissistic abuse. I speak about bereavement. I speak about choosing to be excellent. When I speak corporately, I speak about organizational learning and transforming teams. So there you go, potted history.
There you go. Let's start about about domestic abuse. Um, you've been through domestic abuse, haven't you?
I have. I've been through some what we would call, if you can grade it, some moderately mild abuse. I was married for a very long time to somebody, and we had a very unhealthy relationship. And I'm not blaming him for that. We're both a product of our backgrounds, I suppose. We married very young. We didn't really know much about how to have a wholesome marriage, and we had to learn as we went along. And that marriage ended after, as I like to say, a quarter of a century, which is a long time to be married to someone when you're not particularly happy with them. And we'd gotten into some pretty unhealthy habits. And I emerged from that marriage when I was 45, a little bit battle worn. And I decided that I was going to, after I cried for a year, pretty much every day over the loss of my marriage. And all the dreams that go with it. You know, you kind of think you're going to get old with somebody, and that's not how
Mm.
it worked out. And then I went on to try dating. And what I found was I had clearly tattooed across my forehead, "Come and abuse me, I'll take it." So that's where I got into some really abusive relationships. And I didn't notice that that was something I'd done to myself. So I had to learn hard and fast about how you
Yeah,
escape those sorts of situations, because I built them for myself.
yeah, you certainly do when you go through kind of like, when you split it up in the, when you finish a relationship, like a marriage, you still got all the kind of like, you got your four girls, you got pressure on you. Next minute, you're going out on the dating scene and you got these, you got these people you're dating and everything. Was it because you were lonely? Is that why you went out on the dating?
Yes. I knew at 45, obviously, I knew I did not want to live the rest of my life alone. I knew I wanted to be part of a couple. I had loved that part of marriage. I'd loved knowing that I was somebody's person. I really missed that. I missed the closeness and the affection of being someone's partner, and I went out searching for it. And one of the problems when you search for affection is people can smell the desperation on you. And that means predatory people can smell the desperation on you, and you immediately become quite delicious prey.
hang on for a second. When you kind of like going bad, are you all right?
Yeah, I'm struggling to hear you, Steve.
Okay. Is that better?
That's a little better, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Are
that's
you all
better.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what kind of when you were going through that relationship, when you were having these different relationships, was
Hmm.
it because of that you wanted to be with somebody, or was it because of loneliness, or was it? Sorry, I didn't catch that because my phone rang. Sorry about that.
All right, okay, no problem. Yeah, I'd sort of dated quite a few men, and then I settled into a relationship with one particular man, who we're going to call Psycho Steve,
Oh,
because
thanks.
his name was Steve, and he was indeed psycho. So this is why we call him Psycho Steve. And Psycho Steve told me when he met me, he sort of swept me off my feet a little bit. He told me that he was a very wealthy man. Not that I cared, but I'd had some short relationships with people who wanted me to foot the bill for everything, and as a professional woman, I had done so, but I didn't really want to kind of baby somebody. I wanted to be a partner, not a mom. So when he said he was a very wealthy man, I thought, fantastic. He's not going to want to exploit me for money. That's great. So I went out with him a few times. The first time, bless him, he had a terrible problem because he'd forgotten his wallet at home and he was very embarrassed, so I paid. And the next time we went out, he'd had some fraud on his card and his card was frozen. It was terrible. He couldn't do anything about it, so I paid. Another time we just decided on the hop to go somewhere and he said, I haven't got any cash. Can you get this? I was like, yeah. And this happened a number of times. And you know, I'm not in it. I'm not stupid. I'm not completely lacking any sort of perception. And I said to him, it was about 3 months in, I was trying to get my courage up to say to him that I knew he didn't have any money. And I said to him one day, look, Steve, I realize, and you do know I realize, don't you, that you don't have any money. And it did not go well. He was displeased that I had worked it out. And he became extremely aggressive very fast. I landed up thinking he was going to be throwing something at me. So I was sort of taken aback. I was kind of cowering a little bit. And I looked at his face and I thought there was a fleeting expression there I'd not seen before. It was something like triumph, most
Right.
unattractive. But I thought, no, it's obviously me. He's upset. It's very human to be upset when you're caught out. And I understood that. I got that. So I smoothed things over. I said, it doesn't matter to me. I don't really care. I just really want the truth. And he said, well, the truth is I'm retired and I have a pension to live on because he was in the forces. So he has a pension to live on. And I said, well, that's okay. We don't have to do the expensive stuff. That's fine. I don't mind. And he did not respond well to that either, because that was humiliating to his idea of himself as a man. And I realized very fast that I put a step wrong and that I had to try and distract him from it. So I said to him, why don't we just go to a movie? Because I thought, that's okay, that's not expensive and I can cover it and it will be a great day. So we were in Portsmouth actually at the time, and he said to me, well, I don't want to go to a movie in Portsmouth. If we're going to a movie, we'll have to go to Southampton. So I was like, okay, no problem. So it's a short drive along the coast. It's a pretty part of the world. We had a lovely little drive. We got to Southampton and he said he wanted to go to the very expensive cinema. So it's about £25 a ticket for the whole experience. I was a bit taken aback because I thought I did not agree to pay for this. And if I had, it'd have been the £4 seats on a matinee, you know. But he said, no, I've got this. I was thinking, wow, he's bought his wallet. This is amazing. We've made progress. And I was feeling all good, you know, I was feeling all triumphant because I'd faced a fear that I'd had of confronting him and it had gone pretty badly, but now it was okay. So I was encouraged. So we went into the movie theatre, and as he bought the tickets, and as we were heading towards the concessions, he looked at me and said, "You're not hungry, are you?" And I was like, okay, no, because I think that's the right answer. And I'm a great people pleaser, by the way. So when he told me I wasn't hungry, I just agreed with him. I mean, I could have been starving. It wouldn't have mattered because there was no way he was buying me a snack. But he did buy himself a meal, which he then sat down in front of me and ate. So.
And he did buy you one?
He did not. He did not so much as buy me a glass of
water. Sorry.
I know, he's a right charmer, isn't he? So following this, we went to see the movie. It was great. His choice, Beauty and the Beast. I'm still wondering about that. I know, right? And then we went back out to the car, and I parked the car exactly where he had told me to park. I don't know Southampton at all. And obviously I had learned to be quite obedient because that is what kept the storms at bay. So we went up to the car and we put the ticket in the machine to pay the parking, and the fee was £10. Well, you'd swear they had chopped his tail off in tiny pieces. He had a fit. He was apoplectic with rage. His eyes were bulging. This vein in his temple was pulsing. I thought it was going to burst and spray us all with black blood. He was incandescent with rage over this £10. Now, I realized he didn't have any money, so I'd said to him, "It's okay, I'll pay it." And he's like, "It's not the point. It's not the point. Why did you park here? I never told you to park here." And I was like, what? History was just completely rewritten in that moment. I thought, oh, you're going to have to be careful here. This is not a man who respects the truth. So you have to be very careful. So I was thinking, right, what do I do? So I begged and pleaded with him to just get in the car. And in the end, he allowed himself to be soothed. And I put him in the car. And then we started to drive home to Portsmouth. And on the way, there's a toll bridge.
He jumped off, did he?
Well, he'd by this time stopped actually gnashing his teeth audibly. So I thought we were in with a shot for a pleasant evening, but we were not. That was premature optimism, we're calling it. And as I pulled up to the toll road, it said there's a little warning, tiny warning. If you're driving past it upset, you won't see it. Trust me, I know. And it said you have to pay 60p to cross the bridge because this is England. And we like to ask people to do random stuff like pay shrapnel to cross a bridge. So I was trying to drive up to this bridge. It was pouring down with rain. The wind was howling off the coast. He was freaking out quietly. We were in traffic and I pulled up to a toll road. Now, I don't know about you, but I think a reasonable person understands that at this point, any vehicle, there's some rustling about for change. There's a little bit of faffage goes on, and everybody in the queue behind you understands that. However, Psycho Steve, in supportive mode, did not understand this. And he was screaming at me like I have never heard anybody scream before, that I was stupid because I hadn't planned for this. Even though we were on a road I'd never been on before, at his suggestion. I was scraping around the bottom of my handbag in the dark looking for 60p. And as I did so, I leant on my handbag and it pressed the horn. And the next thing, he bailed out of the car and he was bashing at the windows of the car behind us. So I got out and I was like, "Steve, what's going on? What's going on?" He goes, "I'll teach them to hoot. I'll teach them to hoot at me." I was like, "No, it wasn't them. It was me." So he's like, "I'll teach you to lie. Get in the car." And then the tirade of abuse started and I was stunned. So he was running around freaking out in the rain like some sort of wet demon. And I got in the car.
Wet demon.
I know, right? It's insane. I mean, if you wrote a movie, this would just be unbelievable. I was just watching this all unfold in front of me thinking, how did I get here? And I got in the car. I put the 60p into the toll thing. And at this moment, he realized his chariot was leaving. So he bailed into the car and we started to drive. And I was crying my eyes out. I was wet through. My hair was dripping everywhere. My handbag contents were all over the car. And I was crying because I was just floored at this. I'm not great for confrontation. So it scares me down to the bones of me. And he knew that. He knew that. In fact, that is why he was going out with me. That was my one attractive feature to him, was my inability to cope with aggressive behavior. That was what made me appealing to him. Not my intelligence, my articulateness, my sweet nature, my amazing ability to cook Yorkshire pudding from scratch. Didn't care about that stuff. All he cared about was that I was empathic and afraid if he yelled at me.
And a walking bank, of course.
Yeah. So we got home. He was livid. I was crying. We got out of the car and he said to me, "Look, just go and get changed. Go and get changed," he said with this disgust and contempt in his voice. So I went and I got changed. And the only thing I had to wear was a little nightdress that he'd given me. So a very thin nightdress, very vulnerable, actually. And I went back downstairs and we were having a coffee and he started off again. He threw a glass coaster at me and only just missed. And he was towering over me. I was trying to get out the door and he'd pushed one hand against the door just casually because he knew that there was no way I could open it with him just casually standing there. And he had the sardonic, contemptuous leer. He was looking down at me. And then he started to yell. And as he was yelling, his face contorted with rage, and like his coffee-soaked spit was spitting onto my face as he was swearing at me and abusing me. And I was curled up tighter and tighter against the door, waiting for the blows to land. I stole a glance at his face and I realized it wasn't a fleeting expression of triumph he'd had earlier. This was what he lived for. This was how he was feeding off my fear. He was actually gleeful, loving every second of my delicious terror. That's domestic abuse.
Where did he live? I'll give him a kick up the ass.
There's all sorts of things I should have done and I didn't.
See, the trouble is, Lucy, I understand where you've been, and I'm so sorry that you've been through that. What a nutter! What a nutter! But what I can't understand is this: like, if you had all these trigger warnings, why didn't you just say, "All right, bugger you, I'm off"?
You're so right, and yet I didn't, and I'll tell you why. Because
You were in love with him.
No, I wasn't in love with him. Never did fall in love with him. I fell in pity with him. I was sorry for him and I fell for the stories. He was a narcissist, so they've got quite a few tricks up their sleeve. They do things like love bombing. So there were poems every day. There were romantic little tokens, all electronic because they're free. But, still, little bitmojis, little diagrams of me, love poems he'd written himself. He wrote a song for me. No one had ever done that before. So there was this barrage of love. And although I was not in love with him, at that point, I didn't believe I would ever be in love with anybody. I felt like that was something that happened to other people and was never going to happen to me because I was 45 and old and wrinkly and, fat. And I just didn't think that anybody would ever really love me for the person I am inside. And that's very sad, but that's how a lot of people feel. And we're wrong. We're wrong. That is, none of that matters. But at the time, I didn't know it. So I had started this relationship with this man. He had created a persona for me that was everything I wanted in a man. Someone strong and protective, somebody I could feel safe with, somebody who showed an empathic side, who was urbane, slightly chivalrous, a bit debonair. Very good-looking guy. And strong, physically strong. And I liked that about him. I like to be the little spoon, And don't we all? So he was everything I thought I was looking for. And he had a tragic backstory, like Batman, but slightly more deranged. So he'd been raised in a children's home, he said. Now I realize nothing he said was true. But he told me he was raised in a children's home, that he had never had his own shoes, that he had never had enough to eat his entire life. He told me that he'd gone through a period of severe mental ill health, and I felt desperately sorry for him. So when he went out of control, I made massive excuses for him to myself and everybody else. I said he didn't mean it. It was only the one time. He didn't really hit me. There was just a bit of shoving. He didn't really shove me, just a bit of restraining, control. He was just out of control because he hadn't learnt the skills of coping like other people do, because he hadn't been raised in a family. All of these excuses for his behavior. But the deep-seated baseline was I did not want to be alone, because that meant I was unlovable. I never thought I could do better, but I would have taken that over being on my own.
Yeah. So today, where are you today?
Today, I am not in a narcissistic or any form of abusive relationship. I've come to the point where I realized that the first relationship I needed to have was with myself. I realized that I needed to get safe so that I felt safe on my own. And this is the brilliant thing about love and relationships, or significant romantic relationships specifically, is that the more concern, care, and value you place on yourself, the more you will see that reflected in other people's treatment of you. I didn't value myself, so I was incredibly attractive to people who didn't want to value me either. And I attracted shed loads of them. In fact, if you've got a bottle of wine, some tissues, and several hours, we'll go through them. But I wouldn't suggest coming into that unprepared. I dated perhaps for 2 years before I found somebody I wanted to spend time with. And I had all the experiences. I got roofied one time. I got that. It ended better than it should have. I fell on a date once. No, not once, twice. Same date.
Are you a comedian or what?
I have aspirations. I went out. I even said to this one chap that I'd been chatting with for a little while, and he'd sent me a photograph of himself. When he turned up for the date, that photograph was several years and many teeth out of date. And I don't like to be shallow, but I really do want a man with teeth. I just do. I know it's a hard no, really, that he had 3 teeth. It's not even the 3 teeth. It's the fact that the 3 teeth were putrid. It's just like, you know what, just take them out and start again, you know. And whilst that's really unfair and cruel to say, actually, the only reason that I'm not dating that man is he treated me badly. I didn't think he was attractive with his 3 teeth. But I would have stayed with him if he hadn't treated me badly. And that was a fleeting 1 weekend long relationship. And he managed to fit all kinds of abuse into those tiny hours that I spent in his company. And yet I would have stayed with him if he'd been nice. So that's the lesson, is that if you don't value yourself enough, you will be with somebody who is not going to treat you nice. And that's no way to live your life.
No. See, the trouble is, though, if someone was kind of like I got a friend and she was being beaten up by her husband quite a bit. And I said, why don't you leave? And the excuse was, I love him. I don't want to go anywhere. He'll probably commit suicide. I said, what? Are you going to stay from getting beaten up?
You know what? It's a cop-out. Okay,
it's
a cop-out. It is a cop-out. She doesn't love him because he's not the person that she fell for. The person she fell for does not exist. It's a construct to reel you in and keep you hooked. And when somebody's being abusive, they have no right to put their hands on you. And if you permit them that right, you teach them that that's okay. Now, I know how hard it is. I walked away from a relationship with my children in tow in the middle of the night. We were destitute. There was a time we had to go to a food bank. Everything I feared about single parenthood came true. Everything. But I was still better off on my own than I would have been with any of those people, because they're dead weight. They are parasitic and they feed off your energy. And when they're gone, you do have more energy. But trust me, that process of cleaving away from someone who's abusive to you is incredibly painful. And it takes enormous courage for a few reasons. First of all, when I left Psycho Steve in the end was because he risked my daughter. Up until that point, I let him do anything he wanted. Anything he wanted. Doesn't matter how much it hurt me or how much he put me down or how humiliated I was. I put up with that on my own behalf. But when that abuse spread slightly towards my child, I was like, hell no, we're out. Tiger mom, you know?
Yeah.
So I would stand up for anybody else, but I would not stand up for me.
Why?
Because I didn't value me. I didn't think I was worth it.
Of course you are.
Yeah, I know that now. But it takes work, you know? It's very comfortable living in misery. I don't know if you're familiar with Winnie the Pooh, but Winnie the Pooh is really reflective of different kinds of personality traits. And I was very much the Eeyore of life. You know, oh no, nobody loves me. So when anybody paid me the smallest bit of attention, I was super grateful. And Psycho Steve was like Tigger. He was bouncy, fun, attractive. There were moments that were amazing. And the thing with narcissistic abuse is so insidious, because he would push me to the point where I'd nearly break, nearly. And then he'd reel it back and he'd be lovely and sweet and kind and tell me how amazing I was and he was sorry and he'd never do again and all of these things. And then for a little while it would be great. And then he'd reel out the abuse again, because he needed the abuse. His psychic energy came from the distress in my eyes. He needed to see it. And when he saw it, I could see him sucking the life out of me. I watched it happen. And yet I was powerless to change it. I didn't have the courage.
Yeah.
And it takes enormous courage. You have to see yourself as someone who is worth walking away for, instead of someone who stays because he's worth staying for. Because if you just try a little harder, if you're just a little nicer, a little kinder, a little more organized, if you just clean the house a bit more, if you just fix the cars better, if you just mow the lawn more often, he'll stay. And then you won't be on your own.
That's it. And today you're married now, aren't you?
No.
You're not married now.
No.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry, I got it wrong from somewhere. So,
Okay.
so you with somebody now?
Yes, I am, and he is. He puts me off my game all the time because he doesn't want anything that isn't just my time. I'm not quite sure how to cope.
Right. Okay. So, but as long as he's not Psycho Steve, he's all right. Yeah.
There are a lot of Psycho Steves out there. He's very representative of narcissists, and don't fall into the trap of thinking it's just men. Anybody can be a narcissist, and it's a personality disorder. I feel very sorry for narcissistic people, because it must be exhausting to live your whole life behind a facade that you have to constantly build. And as the little bricks fall out of it, you've got to constantly put them back in. One of the problems with Steve is he wasn't that smart, so he used to forget what lies he told. And I'm a lot of things, but I'm not thick. So I used to remember what he'd said, and then a lie would happen, and I'd go, oh, but didn't you say that? And he'd go, oh, yes, but you're not understanding me. It's all, you always do this. You always invent things. I was like, wow. Again, history rewrites itself. And his version of whatever happened, as far as he's concerned, is the truth, even though we both know he lied. But it doesn't matter to him. He would create situations, stories in which he could see me become distressed. And when he did that, then he got his kick, which is what he needed, because we all need energy to survive.
Well, yeah, of course he was feeding on you, wasn't he? He was
Mm.
sick, he was feeding, and I am really so sorry that you had to go through all that. I talked to a lot of people on here about abuse, and I've heard some stories, and I even had to go to a counsellor several times to kind of like get help. So I'm so really I am really so sorry. They people like that need a kick up the backside, or they need to be locked up for a very long time.
Yeah, I don't know if they can be helped, frankly, because they have no wish to be helped. They don't want to be any other way. It's not like somebody else who, for instance, I have a streak a mile wide of passive aggression.
Mm,
I can be quite vicious, and it doesn't sit well with me. It's not the person I aspire to be. So when I see myself being passive aggressive, I sit myself down and I have a talk with myself and I go, that is not the behavior that we wish to reflect, is it now? So I will self-correct, and if somebody else points it out to me, I will correct on the basis of feedback as well. A narcissist isn't able to do that because it's an attack on their facade.
mm,
And the person hiding behind the facade is broken and hurting. So I do have enormous compassion for them, but it's like you can't go and cuddle a viper because
yeah,
it will bite you and you will get hurt.
yeah, yeah. Before I finish, I want to know about you and the book because um, the book. Where can people get your book?
My book is for sale at Barnes and Noble or Amazon. It's called Choose to Be Excellent, even when everything else sucks. And in it, I talk about how I got back up and kept going after the death of my
Well
firstborn
done.
baby. And it was unspeakably painful to lose that baby. She would be 27 now, and I miss her every day like I can't breathe. She is in my thoughts all of the time. I celebrate her birthday. People say to me, how many children do you have? And I always tell them 4, although 3 are with me now and 1 is waiting for me. And she forms a part of who I am as a mother and as a woman.
Mm,
But the loss of her very nearly finished me off. And I entered a depression so deep that I could not see a future. And when I say that I wanted to take my own life, I mean that I was desperate to take my own life. On
yeah.
several occasions, I wanted to so badly.
That's what I want to do. I want you to come back and we can talk about the grief and about losing your child, if that's all right, because we get a lot of people kind of like, I'll get a lot of people contacting me now on my radio and they're saying, hey, Steve, this is interesting. Can you kind of like get Ava back? And there's a lot of interest. But the trouble is, when you wrote your book and when you lost your daughter, what was I reckon life for you was like, well, that's it. I want to end my life. I can't go on. I've had enough. Was it like that?
It was like that. After I'd lost her, she had a bedroom, obviously, a little bedroom, a little nursery. And the rest of the family had seen fit to take all of her things out because they thought it might be too painful for me to see that. But what I landed up doing was sitting in my dressing gown in the corner of her room, and I didn't move for weeks. I didn't eat anything. I got up to use a bathroom and I drank some water, and I went back and I sat in there searching for my baby inside my own head. And then I got up because it was torturing my husband that I was like that. I got up and I thought, okay, I can't do this. This is not possible to live with this agony. So I pretended it hadn't happened. I literally dissociated myself from my life. And I would go and buy baby clothes. I bought a little pair of shoes for her, knowing she was dead, but still not knowing. Just thinking if I could just behave like she wasn't dead, maybe I would wake up. and it would be a horrible nightmare. I saw a baby crying in a supermarket once, in a supermarket trolley, and the baby's mother was inattentive. I do not know, and I thank my lucky stars to this day. I do not know how I didn't steal that child. Because in my mind, she did not deserve that baby. And mine had been taken, so I wanted that one. And I don't even know why I didn't take it. I remember having the fight with myself and standing there saying, she doesn't deserve it. This baby is crying. So I was properly crazy with the pain of it. It drove me wild. And there was no rest from it. It was relentless. I would sleep for snatches at a time, and I'd wake up, and for a half second, it would feel like it hadn't happened. And then it would all come back. And I wished I was a drinker. I did. But I was not. I wished that there was something I could do that would alleviate that suffering, and I couldn't. I didn't have friends to speak of. I was living in a country where the first language wasn't English. So communication was very difficult. It was the darkest possible period. And I received an invitation from an uncle. I was living in Portugal at the time. I received an invitation from my uncle to live in Birmingham with him for a very short space of time, just a month. So I came over to Birmingham, and it was drizzly and grey, and it reflected my mood. But immediately being out of the environment where she had died almost gave me the idea that there was a life that wasn't just in that room, that there was still a whole world out there. And people don't know what to say when you're grieving. It's so incredibly awkward. And people were saying things to me like, she wouldn't want you to spend your life in this room. And that was really not very helpful. But it was true. I just wasn't ready to hear it at the time.
No.
And this is the thing with going through hell, is there's no way through it but through it. If you stop, you just live in hell. You've got to keep going, otherwise it doesn't get any better. But if you put one foot in front of the other one, you get through hell. And I have my scars. Nothing takes away the pain of losing that child. But there are other things that are joyful. I've gone on to have 3 other children for whom I am so unspeakably grateful. They are beautiful, and they bring a light to my life, which is every bit as much as I dreamed of having with my first. The one thing I will say, having lost my first, is that I am a better mother for that. I did not sleepwalk through their lives. I loved every day of raising all of my girls.
Beautiful, beautiful. I tell you what, I'd love you to come back and talk about more and everything. I wish I had time today. Sorry, I'm just welling up here. I've got to hide myself because I've got tears coming to mind. But I'm a softie. My wife says to me, "Oh, you're a softie," and whatnot. But I am. Oh God, thank you so much for coming.
Empathic.
Yeah. I've got to show my emotions. Yeah. Oh, oh gosh, yeah. Anyway, thank. So I don't know what to say. Sorry. Yeah. 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 Sorry. Okay. Okay, guys. I've got to go. Got to go. Thank you very much, Eva. Ava. I
Ava.
can't even say your name down properly. And I will see you guys around about 15 minutes time with the wonderful Susan Reed. Don't forget, BBC correspondent Susan's been with us now for months on end, and we're going to have a chat with her. In the meantime, hopefully we'll get Ava back and talk about grief. Wasn't that really good, eh, guys? If you tell you what, you missed a treat. You missed a treat. So, and I reckon you should watch this video back and listen to every single word she said. It was the truth came out, everything came out, and she don't pull anything back. It's always someone who's honest, and I love people like that. So, if you want to hear that, go to Crossroads podcast.uk or crossbizradio.co.uk, and you can see everything about it. And also, don't forget a book, guys. Don't get that as well. Get a book. So, Ava, thank you very much. I've got off. Go get some tissues.
Well, thank you so much. It's been great to speak to you.
Thank you. Bless you. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye.